In the world of mountain biking, the camera to go for filming your rides has traditionally been GoPro. And I just so happen to have the latest GoPro Hero 12. But is this really the best camera for capturing your footage? Or are there alternatives? Now, I happen to have DJI's GoPro equivalent, the Osmo Action 4, and I'm going to put these two to the test, and at the end of this video I'm going to give you my verdict, which is the better camera for capturing your riding. Now, before I show you the footage I got from these two cameras, I'm going to go through a bit of a pros and cons list, because before I've even fastened this to a bike, there's a couple of things I love and hate about them. And these are things that definitely make a big difference. To be transparent, I didn't pay for either of these cameras because I'm a lucky boy. I am going to be brutally honest though, and my opinions are truthful. The other thing I want to be transparent about is I know practically nothing about cameras, so I won't be diving into the specs of these because there's about 1 million videos on YouTube about that already. This video is specifically about how these work for mountain bike footage and how easy they are for a layman like myself to get good footage. I'll put chapters down below, so if you want to skip forward to the riding footage, you'll know where to go. Well, I've written myself a nice script on the pros and cons for these cameras, so let's dive in. Now, I'll start with the GoPro first, as that's the one that most people will be familiar with. With the pros first, this is a nice quality camera, and I'm not just talking about the footage. The body itself is reassuringly heavy, the doors are solid, and it feels like it can survive whatever you'll throw at it. And speaking of survival, it has an easily removable lens should you crack or scratch it. That's definitely a feature that's worth having. Inside the camera, there's some really cool options like 10-bit color, 5.7K ultra high res, but one thing I think is cool is the ability to film horizontally or vertically without needing to reposition the camera. You still have to choose one or the other, but it's handy to be able to film vertically while still having it mounted horizontally. GoPros have had digitally stabilized footage for a while now, and the Hero 12 is no exception. It's possible to have some very smooth footage with this camera. Lastly, there's the option to upgrade the lens with GoPro's Lens Mod 2.0 for the widest possible field of view and other features like horizon lock. With the Lens Mod option activated and set in the widest field of view, it almost has a 360 camera feel to it. Some people love the extreme wide field of view, some people hate the deformed look. Gonna try this setting on the bike later, so yeah, hold your judgment until then. There are some cons though. The robustness does add some weight, with the GoPro weighing 153 grams compared with the Action 4's 143. Plus, it's slightly larger too. I also find the battery door is quite tricky to open with cold hands or gloves. Even small details like the SD card being harder to remove is added to the list. I normally have to take the battery out to get access to the SD card, which just isn't ideal. Those last 2 points are also related to one of my biggest negatives of this camera, the fact that the battery, SD card and USB charging port are all under the same door. Ideally, the charging port would have its own door so that the battery and SD card are always protected from the weather. GoPro do a door with a USB-C port that is partially weather sealed, but if you don't use the correct cable, or any cable at all, then you are left with a big hole into the most vulnerable part of the camera. Next up, GoPro seem to be one of the last brands that haven't gone with magnetic mounts. I must admit, I was a little bit skeptical of magnetic mounts at first, but having used them for a while, I'm converted. GoPros now feel a little bit dated with their standard mounts. The good news is that it is possible to upgrade the mounts to aftermarket magnetic ones, but it's a shame GoPro haven't caught up with the times. Another big negative for me is how hard it is to add an external mic to a GoPro. They do offer an adapter, but it's bulky and the USB fit doesn't inspire confidence. And personally, even with the adapter, I still struggle to get any of my mics to work smoothly. Outside of the physical camera from GoPro, I find their app quite clunky to use as well. Out of the 3 apps I've used from Insta360, DJI and GoPro, the GoPro app is my least favourite to use. Another small negative is that the Lens Mod 2.0 is easy to scratch with it being much more pronounced and curved, and it's not cheap either. In GoPro's defense, there's not really that much they can do about it, but at least they give you a nice lens cover for it. One annoyance with GoPros is it's the only brand of camera that I've had accidentally record when loose in a bag or a pocket. Okay, maybe my fault for not storing it properly, but the record button on the GoPro is definitely more sensitive than other cameras, and I've drained more than one battery from accidental bag or pocket recordings. Lastly, I'd like to see GoPro offer a better option for battery storage and charging. Even in their accessory bundle package, the batteries are just loose and you need to buy a multi-charger separately. I'd like to see batteries supplied with their own charging dock and storage combo. Spoiler, like DJI does. So that's the pros and cons for the Hero 12. How does the Action 4 hold up? Firstly, the pros. This is a smaller and lighter camera. It still feels solid, but the weight saving would be noticeable on helmets, and the smaller size is definitely nicer if you're going to be keeping this thing in your pocket. Secondly, reliability. I've been using this Action 4 since last year, and it's never overheated or glitched out. That's something previous GoPro models have struggled with, and I've personally lost some great clips when it's happened to me. I haven't lost a single clip with the DJI. I also find the doors a lot easier to open on the DJI. There's actually a little button and it doesn't take much effort at all, even with cold or gloved hands. Unlike the GoPro, the SD card is easy to remove even with my fingernail bitten fingers. It's a small detail, but it's a detail I like nonetheless. And while we're talking about doors and SD cards, like I mentioned on the GoPro, I didn't like how everything was under one door. However, the DJI actually has two doors, and this one is dedicated to the USB-C charging port. This means that you can plug in accessories to this and still have all the battery and SD card fully sealed from the weather. Speaking of accessories, DJI offer their own mic adapter, and it's a vast improvement over the GoPros. It's smaller and lighter for a start, and it actually clips into the door hardware, making a much more secure fit. This is such a solid fit, and it reduces the chance of connection being lost or creating interference. I also had a much better experience getting mics to work with the DJI, as it's obvious when it's connected and working, as there's a bar at the top that shows you it's connected and what the mic gain is. So it's extremely easy to fit things like this lapel mic, but also much bigger shotgun mics too. Because this camera is so easy to work with mics, it actually makes a great low profile, lightweight vlogging rig. I use this setup with a battery bank handle and a small tripod, and the mic adapter actually has a pass-through charging port, so I can use this to charge the camera while I'm filming. With this setup, it's so small, so lightweight, and it'll still last all day, and I'm getting great video quality to boot. And of course, as you'd expect, the DJI camera also works seamlessly with the DJI wireless mic, although mine's a bit empty in a minute because I'm currently using it to record this audio. Like the GoPro, the DJI also has a removable lens, so if you, like me, fall off all the time and smash your lens, at least you can replace it easily. And if you want to get fancy with your filming, DJI also supply these filters. These don't replace your lens, but instead just clip over the top of it. Even though it's just a press fit, it is on there fairly securely. I think only the harshest crash would make that come off. The Action 4 has also got the latest trend of magnetic mounts, which I love. It's so easy to swap the camera from helmet to a selfie stick or chest mount. Like I said, I wasn't convinced this was needed on cameras at first, but having used it for a while, I really grew to love this feature. The magnetic mounts also allow easy vertical filming, but you do have to use their cage. With the cage fitted, you still get the option of mounting it horizontally, but you also get the option of mounting it vertically if you wanted to get some reels. However, this cage does have some cons, which I'll go into shortly. Now, on paper, the DJI should have better low light performance, but we'll be putting that to the test later on. Like most high-end action cameras these days, the image quality in this thing is great. There's also 10-bit color like the GoPro, and the image stability is excellent too. Lastly, DJI offer an adventure combo that provides quite a few handy accessories, such as a selfie stick, extra magnetic mounts, SD card, a cage, 3 batteries, and a battery charger storage box. The battery charger and storage box is a particular highlight, as it tells you exactly how much charge is left in the batteries, and it just keeps everything in the same place, easy to storage. I think that is an excellent addition. Even with all these extras, which I'm not showing everything here, it still comes out cheaper than the GoPro Hero 12. Sounds pretty good, right? It's not perfect though. Here's some cons. That decent image stabilization comes at a bit of a cost. If you're wanting the most image stability, it's going to crop in quite a lot. In these higher stability modes, it's actually becoming a bit too tight of a crop for usable POV footage in my opinion. Another disadvantage is that if you do want to use the cage, you're going to lose some of that smaller camera advantage. It's now pretty much exactly the same size and weight as a Hero 12. But if you want to do vertical filming, you will have to use a cage. It's a shame they couldn't just put a mount on the battery door, but who knows, maybe having a magnet that close to the SD card or battery just didn't work. It's definitely something I would love to see in the future though. And speaking of mounts, even with the DJI being a smaller camera, because the magnetic mount is quite a tall system, the camera does actually end up sitting taller than the GoPro. So if you're actually wanting something with the lowest profile, the GoPro actually beats the DJI. However, if you do add a magnetic mount to a GoPro, it does actually end up taller than the DJI. It does seem to me that this mount is actually slightly taller than it needs to be. I'd love to see this reduced slightly just to reduce that profile just a little bit. Another thing that I think is a little bit of a shame is these mounts can't be run on either way, so you can't quickly swap the camera to face the other way. This way it actually repels it and physically won't go in. It has to be this way around. And yeah, I think that's just a little bit of a shame. I'd love to just quickly and easily turn the camera around. I'm adding this con here, but this actually applies to both cameras. I'd love to see a vibrate feature. Sometimes an audible beep isn't loud enough, or it's too loud for other moments. I'd love to feel a slight vibrate when recording and stopping recording, just as another way to confirm the action. So purely from a functional point of view, those are my pros and cons for both cameras. And with that done, the DJI seems to have come out with a handsome lead. But all those pros are worthless if the camera doesn't perform when on the bike. Let's get outside and see how they actually look. I've come to Cathkin Braes, which is just south of Glasgow. I'm sure you've seen many videos of me riding logs in these woods. There's also a mountain bike trail centre here, but I'm not here to ride those. I'm actually here to ride a bit of off-piste. I don't know who's made this trail I'm about to ride, but it's perfect for testing cameras. This isn't the steepest trail ever, and in fact it's actually got a couple of uphill points in it. So if these cameras make this look fast and exciting, then it'll make your steeper trails look even better. For this test, I'm going to use the twin mounts that I showed you previously. I'm going to try chin mounted and chest mounted. A lot of people prefer chest mounts, but personally with my bit of chronic pain that I've got in my neck and shoulders, I don't like to have anything like straps going over my shoulders. So despite this being a little bit hotter, this is my preferred choice for filming, even on flatter cross-country type stuff. For this first run, I've tried to get these cameras as similar as possible. They're both on 4K, and I've dropped the frame rate down to 24 frames a second. I've dropped it down to 24 frames because that's how you get the most light into the camera. And also with a fewer frame rates, you get a nice bit of motion blur, which can add to the element of speed. And speaking of getting as much light into these cameras as possible, I should mention that these woods are actually pretty light themselves. The leaves aren't out yet, and actually the trees themselves are fairly widely spaced apart, so I don't think I'll be struggling with light here. Now I was going to test these cameras down in the Scottish borders, down at the Gulfie, where the trees are densely packed, they're evergreen, so it's always dark, especially in winter, and really test the low light performance. But instead, I'll probably just come here when it's dusk and see how these cameras cope with a bit of a darker light issue. But anyway, thanks for your patience. Less chat now, let's get down this trail. I should probably mention, to test the audio, I've got the wind reduction completely set off. So this first one is probably going to be pretty horrible and noisy. On the next few runs, I'll switch the wind reduction higher and even go as far as fitting an external mic and seeing how that copes as well. I haven't done a test run yet, so hopefully I've got the cameras pointing the right way. Let's just dive straight in. Definitely slippier today. No PB's been set. Loose, slippery roots. Oh, wild. Oh, that is definitely slippier. Right, run one done. I'm going to go again with exactly the same settings. The only thing I'm changing is I've upped the image stabilization on both cameras to the next level, and I've added a little bit of wind reduction as well, so let's see how this copes. I've got a feeling the DJI is going to be a bit too tight for this one, but it'll be interesting to see what the GoPro's like, as it's got auto boost, so it's not always stable. I don't know how that's going to look, so yeah, here we go again. This bit's rough. Grip, grip, grip. Cool. Another feature I'm going to test now is the log settings. So as you can see, the colors are pretty flat, but that allows me to color grade them. Now, I'm not the best person at color grading. I normally don't bother filming in log format for my vlogs because it's just extra work, but let's see if it's worth it. Let's see if I can make this footage look even better. Should probably point out that all other settings are the same. I've kept the wind reduction the same as last time, put the DJI back to less stability so it's a wider angle, but they're still both filming in 4K at 24 frames a second. Whoa, that is so slippery on that corner. Gotta just trust that grip. Oh, that corner, I hate that one. Got mud in my mouth then, hopefully I didn't get any on the lenses. So I won't know how that footage looks until I go home and edit it. So this time I've got the GoPro on HDR mode, and I had a look on the Action 4 and I couldn't find that mode anywhere. So I've done a quick Google, and apparently the Action 4 already films in high dynamic range, so it doesn't need a separate mode. So yeah, I've been filming in HDR this whole time and I didn't know it. So let's see how the GoPro holds up to the Action 4 with it now hopefully on a level playing field. That corner again. Oh, got a twig in the face in that one. Okay, I'm going to leave the GoPro on HDR mode just so it more closely matches the DJI, or at least I hope it does. But for this test, what if you're like me who records video for YouTube and Instagram where you want horizontal and vertical clips? Well, both these cameras offer square format where you can choose horizontal or vertical afterwards by just cropping in. When it comes to editing these clips, we'll just have to see which one gives the widest angle for horizontal and vertical, which one works better for your Instagram reels and YouTube clips. Oh, slidey. Two-wheel drift then. I'm definitely getting loose. Oh, slidey. Two-wheel drift then. I'm definitely getting loose. So a few years ago, when GoPro first announced that they were going to do the square format for us content creators to allow us to get horizontal and vertical footage from the same clip, I was so excited. It meant that I could just film with the one camera. However, my experience has been a little bit disappointing. I find that it's actually cropped in a little bit more. I just can't get the same angles or same perspective that I can just by filming a dedicated horizontal or vertical clip, which is a shame because it would have saved me so much hassle. So what if you do want to get vertical footage? How do these cameras cope? Well, like I mentioned in the video, with the DJI, I don't even need to remove the camera or stop recording. I can just switch it around like that. Now obviously I'll have to rotate the footage in editing, but that is done. However, with the GoPro, I now have to switch this off. I have to go into the settings. I have to find, where's it gone? These settings are annoying. No, that's wrong. Come on. No, why are you doing that? I'm gonna have to take my helmet off for this one. Okay, well I can't film vertical footage in HDR, so I'm gonna have to go back to standard, and that is now changed. And okay, so now the GoPro is vertical. So not only do I have to stop filming, I have to take my helmet off, I have to go through all the settings, I can't use HDR mode, and yeah, it's just a much bigger pain in the arse. I don't think I need to change the angles or anything, so I'm just gonna drop in. That tree's getting closer every time. Whoa, back tire drift. Definitely playing with fire on this trail. Yo. As you can tell, the GoPro now looks slightly different. I've added its secret weapon, the Lens Mod 2.0. I haven't edited this video yet, but so far I kind of feel like both cameras are pretty similar. But to get the most essence of speed from a camera, you want a wider angle as possible. That's why a lot of riders are using 360 cameras these days. With the Lens Mod 2.0, that really has widened the field of view, and I have a feeling this will look like one of the fastest clips. Now the Action 4 has been on its widest setting the entire time. It doesn't go any wider than this, so that's pretty much exactly the same setting as it was before. Let's see how it compares with the Hero 12 and the Lens Mod 2.0.
That's wild. Okay, we're obviously back to vertical shooting again. I want to see what the Lens Mod 2.0 looks like in this orientation. Messed up the end, but the rest of that was good, apart from my sleeve rolling down, which was annoying. Right, we have changed angle. We are now on the chest. I feel this is probably how most people will be running the camera, so it's definitely worth a try. I've just waited this long because wearing a chest mount really does make my neck and shoulders hurt, so I won't be doing as many runs, but I'm curious about a few different settings on the camera, so we're going to give this track a good few runs and see how it copes with this lower angle. And if you can tell a difference in the audio as well, I now have the Action 4 hooked up to an external mic which is attached to my helmet. So, is this going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Are you just going to hear me breathing out my arse? We'll soon find out. I've gone back to the standard lens on the GoPro because there's no point going super wide just yet. Not everyone's going to be forking out the money for the Lens Mod 2.0, so let's just see how the stock GoPro matches up against the Action 4. Oh, it's definitely drying out. Could push that a little bit more. There's one thing I think might be causing me an issue, so I'm trying to fix that now. I wondered whether having two cameras on my chest is just so heavy, it's making my whole mount move and shake. So, to see if that was the case, I've literally just got the Action 4 on now. It's a lot lighter. I'm going to go again and see if the lighter setup means it just doesn't move around as much. Fingers crossed. Oh, squirrels! That definitely felt more stable on my chest. Hopefully that footage looks way better. Well, I think I found the answer to my issues. The twin camera setup just was too heavy. On that last run, I just felt like my chest strap was just clamped way tighter to my chest, didn't feel any movement, and looking at the footage, it was way better, totally usable. Let's see how the Action 4 looks vertically. Oh, so like the horizontal footage, the vertical footage was pretty decent too. I would have liked it to be just a little bit wider, so I've stuck on the lens mod 2.0 and we're going to see how this looks. I have a feeling this is where the GoPro will come alive. I think this is a situation the lens mod is just made for. So I'm going to try it horizontally, then vertically, and then maybe a little experiment. And get my breath back. I think I hold my breath the entire time. Just had a look at that last run and I think that is hands down the best clip of the day. That wide angle lens just makes such a big difference. But does it translate to vertical video? Let's send this one more time. Wide. Okay, I mentioned an experiment. What happens if I use a standard lens but keep the lens mod 2.0 setting on? This is extremely warped and distorted. I've no idea if this will look good, but potentially that distortion will make stuff go past really, really fast and it will make you look like you're going warp speed 9 or something. But yeah, like I said, an experiment. Let's see how it looks. Oh, put a fork in me, I'm done. Okay, after a trip home, a little rest, I'm back out and it's now dusk. The light at the minute isn't actually too bad, but my eyes are starting to struggle just ever so slightly. I'm going to try these cameras in fairly standard settings. The DJI, actually, if you take it off Pro mode, has a dedicated button to enhance low light performance, so I've pressed that. The GoPro, all I've done is put that onto log, which should just capture a little bit more detail. What I want to see is, well, I want to be able to see, but importantly, I want some stable footage. Usually as it gets darker, the cameras just become really jerky and unwatchable. So we'll see how we go on today. I put the cameras back onto my chin mount because I can run them both at the same time, and it gives them a fighting chance as the chin mount is the more stable option. Okay, it's even darker now, but it's still lighter than a lot of the Scottish trails can be. Gonna send it again, except this time I've tried to adjust the DJI to some settings I found online, advertising them to be the best low light settings. Disclaimer, I actually couldn't find some of the settings on the camera, so I've kind of had to make do with ones that I could find. Let's see if I've stumbled across something by accident that actually works in low light. We've got deer over here. Right, definitely struggling to see a little bit. That was wild. As you'd expect with the sun setting, it is starting to get even darker. The cameras won't do it justice. I can still see detail and colour, but my eyesight is starting to struggle a little bit. I've upped the ISO on both cameras, but they are still in auto mode. I haven't gone and precisely chosen which settings. I just want to see how they cope because, like I said, I'm a layman, I don't really know cameras. So if I can make this work, anyone can. I should probably point out that even with the sun set and getting darker, this is still lighter than a lot of the trails in Scotland. I just think that some trails in Scotland, especially in winter when it's overcast, it's pretty much just impossible to film in those. Even with the GoPros and DJIs set to the best settings, you ideally just need to get a light for your bike. But I'd say this situation, maybe you've been riding for longer than you thought, you still had a little bit of filming to do, is a more common situation. So yeah, if you're still out riding and filming at this point, you must really want those clips. Oh man, it is really getting dark now. Let's drop in. Whoa.
Right, well, we're obviously back in the garage and it's time for a final verdict. I promised I'd pick a winner out of these two cameras, didn't I? Well, that's potentially going to be a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. Both these cameras are excellent. If you choose either one of these, you're going to get some good footage. However, each camera does have its advantages and disadvantages when filming bike POV stuff. Now, comparing these cameras as standard, that means with the GoPro with the standard lens, they're actually pretty even. One thing the GoPro has an advantage with is image stability, especially on the higher modes. That's one thing I don't quite like with the Action 4. If you want a higher stability, it's going to crop in that footage and then it's just too tight for your POV. But that said, the standard stability on the Action 4 is pretty damn good and you shouldn't need anything higher. One thing the Action 4 does better than GoPro is vertical footage. Not only is it wider when it's in vertical format, it's just so much easier to swap. I found that I had to stop recording with the GoPro, go through all the settings, and then I could film vertically. Whereas with the Action 4, I didn't even need to stop recording. I could just swap the camera around, and with it being wider, it just looked better. Another huge advantage the Action 4 has is just the audio quality. Now, I did add a mic to this, which is its own bonus, but even without that, the audio was way better on the Action 4 than it was from the GoPro. And as you just saw, the Action 4 has great low light ability, which is ideal if you're going in and out of woods. So, in the standard setup, which camera should you get? Well, it's hard to not recommend getting the Action 4. Not only has it got all those advantages I just mentioned, it's also cheaper. Currently, the Action 4 is going for £289. That's just for the camera and battery. You're not getting accessories with that, but that is a damn sight cheaper than the GoPro, which the equivalent price is £350. So you're definitely getting a better bargain with the Action 4. But what if we factor in the Lens Mod 2.0, which is the better camera then? Now, I'll be honest, I think the best clip of the day was captured with the GoPro and the Lens Mod. That extra wide POV really does help with the essence of speed. And when used on the chest, being able to see more of the handlebars, more of your arms, you can see the bike dancing about, it's just a better watch. However, surprisingly, when the cameras are turned vertically, the advantage of the Lens Mod kind of disappears. The Action 4 is pretty much just as wide. And of course, you got all the other advantages of this just being easier to turn into vertical mode and its low light ability. So even with the Lens Mod, if you are purely going out getting the Instagrams with the vertical format, I have to recommend the Action 4 again. But if you are purely wanting the fastest clips for horizontal footage, then the GoPro is the winner there. But that said, that distorted view isn't for everyone. I know some people will probably be in the comments saying they don't like how distorted it is. So if you don't, then the Action 4 wins again. One other disadvantage of the super wide distorted view is it kind of limits the camera to a certain niche of just horizontal chest or chin mount footage. If you want to vlog as well, say you've just been riding and then you stop and talk to the camera, that super distorted view just won't look as good, whereas the more normal view of the Action 4, it will look perfectly fine for any vlogging stuff you want to do on the fly. And of course, there's the price factor again. If you do want that super wide footage, you're gonna have to pay for it. The camera and Lens Mod on its own is £430, and that's without any other accessories. For less than that price, you can get the Action 4 Adventure Combo, which comes with all the accessories like selfie stick, extra batteries with the battery charger and holder, more magnetic mounts, and that's gonna cost you £379, which, yeah, you're getting more and it's still costing less. So, final verdict, which is my favorite? Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to use both of them. That super wide footage you get with the GoPro is just too good to pass up. I think this camera combined with the Action 4 is the dream team. However, the better camera, I think it's the Action 4. This thing can do a lot more than the GoPro. The GoPro with the lens mod is pretty niche, pretty good for just a couple of situations, whereas the Action 4 with its easy mic adapter makes this camera way more versatile. You can use this as a vlogging camera. I have used this as a vlogging camera. It's smaller, you can stick it in your pocket, you can attach it to a selfie stick. Yeah, you can just do more with this camera, so it's hard not to have the Action 4 as the winner. There we go. And on that absolute bombshell, when I finally chose a winner, I'm gonna end the video. It's a long video, isn't it? Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you made it all the way to the end. Give me a thumbs up, and I will catch you next time. So have an amazing week, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.